It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you the next First Lady of the United States of America, someone that resonates with all businesses, all households throughout America, all schools, all children, will be the next host and role model for the United States of America, Callista Newt Gingrich.
The only Reagan conservative!
Good to see you guys, Jones. We've added a $2.50 gas pump on the side of the bus. And I just learned as we were coming here a few minutes ago that the president's going to give a speech on energy today.
Who cares?
Well, you never can tell. Look, he's running for re-election. He probably has been told by his advisors that the American people are not happy with an expensive gasoline policy. So I'm sure he's going to have some really fascinating new ideas. Last week, when he gave his energy speech in Florida, he suggested that while drilling would not work, that algae would. That didn't go over really well.
Like you're flooding our tires, right?
A lot of people didn't think algae was quite ready for prime time. But he's going to, and yesterday his Secretary of Anti-Energy, Dr. Chu, testified in Congress that he did not favor lowering the price of gasoline, that they had no alternative policy to lower the price of gasoline, and that his goal was to get us on to other things. And he announced grandly that they had a breakthrough on battery power for electric cars, and that they had interesting research, is the way he put it, underway on using natural gas. Now, all of these things are interesting, and I'm for science. I am for developing the future. But I think one of the lessons of the Obama waste of over $500 million on Solyndra is that you shouldn't confuse the future with the present. In the present, the American people drive cars and trucks. I know this is a shock to the president. Apparently doesn't fit what they taught him in those classes with Saul Alinsky. But the fact is, most Americans, most days, go to a gas station to fill up their car or truck.
That's right.
Fact is that is a major expense, and that if gasoline hits $5 a gallon this summer, that it will dramatically impact the economy, because people won't have any extra money. It'll all be gone just trying to get to and from work. Now, none of this seems to be sinking in. So before the president's speech this afternoon, I have a couple of challenges, a way the American people can measure his speech today. First, if he's really serious about helping the American people, having seen yesterday's testimony, he will fire Secretary Chu and get somebody who favors less expensive gas. I mean, this is a very straightforward test. If you have, and Dr. Chu is apparently a brilliant scientist and apparently did wonderful things at Livermore Laboratory, and I am for allowing him to go back to science as rapidly as possible. In fact, I suspect the American people would chip in to buy the airplane ticket later on today. So, but what he isn't is the Secretary of Energy. Because we have been trying since the 1970s to solve the wrong problem. The challenge has been, since the mid-1970s, that we rely more and more on foreign countries for our gasoline. That's because we have tried a dozen different ways to get us to quit using it. So we have cars that get longer, and then as they made the cars smaller, people bought trucks. I mean, we have been constantly struggling with our liberal elites now for 40 years. I favor an American energy policy that's designed for the American people. chance to see the president's speech today or to read it after he gives it, there are a couple of simple tests. He ran in 2008 on the slogan, "Yes, we can." He's running this year on the slogan, "Why we couldn't." So if he goes through a litany of, here's why we can't solve gasoline this summer, this is the same old baloney.
Yeah.
Okay? There are three things he could do today, and he used this phrase last week, you know, there are no silver bullets. Well, there is a presidential pen.
Yep.
So he could announce three things today. You can check these off if he announces them. And if he does these three things, I will concede it's a good speech, at least in the right direction. First, he could announce that he is signing the Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah.
That would bring 700,000 barrels a day of Canadian oil to Houston. That's right. Now that's real, it's specific, it's not baloney. Second, he could announce that he has reopened the Gulf of Mexico, which would be about 400,000 barrels a day. Yep. And that would be real.
Yep. That's right.
Third, he could announce that he is opening up the known areas in Alaska, and that would be about 1,200,000 barrels a day. That would be real. So we now have four immediate real things. Fire Secretary Chu, open the pipeline, open the Gulf, open Alaska. We can check, at the end of his speech today, we'll be able to, I'll give a report card, I think I'll be in Macon by then, and I'll give a report card on whether we got more Obama baloney, which is a peculiarly left-wing baloney. We're trying to figure out how to design some kind of picture of what does Obama baloney look like. It would be all left-wing. Maybe it's baloney made of the left wings of turkeys. I don't know. It's or is he being straight with us? Now, he could be straight with us and be left wing. He could say, yes, it is true we're trying to punish you. After all, you're clearly bad people because you're Americans. And therefore I have to apologize to the world for you regularly. He's not going to do that because he wants to get reelected. That's right. So our policy is very straightforward. You see it up here with a $2.50 a gallon. I want an American energy policy that maximizes the development of American resources so that no American president ever again bows to a Saudi king.
Amen.
If we have an American energy policy, if we open up offshore, if we open up federal lands, we will create several million new jobs, and we will be a dramatically better economy almost overnight. We will also, over the next generation, create 16 to 18 trillion, not billion, trillion dollars in royalties, which would be enough that if you put it over here, and balance the budget over here, you would literally then be able to take this and pay off the national debt. We also, in that process, would create an opportunity to get the price of gasoline down. Now, a number of my friends in the news media have said, oh, you can't promise $2.50 a gallon gasoline. Well, I'm not. Let's be clear. I did do, Herman Cain was sitting in for Neil Brooks today, and I did do the radio show, and I did tell Herman that somebody came up to me in Nashville, and they said, I know what President Obama's 999 plan is. I said, I want you to tell Herman that President Obama has a different 999 plan. He said, what are you talking about? He said, his plan is $9.99 a gallon. So you do know that there's a huge difference. At a minimum, you can say Obama much higher prices, Gingrich much lower prices. But here's what I want as a history teacher. Here's the point I want to make because our friends in the news media seem to have amnesia and an inability to learn history. When I was speaker, the price of gasoline was $1.13.
Go back to that, please.
When Obama became president, the day he was sworn in, The average price of gasoline was $1.89. At $2.50, I'm offering an ultra-conservative proposal, because that's the price. The estimate we got from the oil people was that's the price it would take to sustain long-term development of fields that are more complicated, so you would actually have energy independence. So I'm not trying to drive for the lowest possible price, but here's how the market works. When Ronald Reagan deregulated gasoline, all sorts of liberals said, oh, prices are going to go skyrocketing. Within 6 months, supply and demand took effect, the market responded, and prices crashed.
Yep.
In natural gas, where we had an extraordinary explosion of new capabilities. And this is why I'm confident that we can, in fact, become energy independent. In the year 2000, the estimate was that there was 7 years' supply of natural gas left in the United States, and we were beginning to plan to import liquefied natural gas to the Middle East. Because of new technology, there is now a 125-year supply of natural gas in the United States, and we're building liquefied natural gas plants to ship it to China. That's how big the change has been. Nobody in Washington gets this yet, because this violates every rule of liberalism. It means you don't have peak energy. It means you don't have to ration. You don't have to have a centralized bureaucracy. You can let the market work. And guess what happened? We have now produced so much gas that it has dropped from $8 to under $3. And in fact, the price is now so low that it's slowed down exploration because there's a surplus of natural gas in the United States. Now, why would you think that's true of natural gas, but couldn't be true of oil? And of course, it could be true, but if it is true, everything the left has said for 40 years is wrong. Well, I hate to say this, but everything the left has said for 40 years is wrong. Now, there's a very powerful reason for us to have an American energy policy beyond $2.50 a gallon. And that is that we need to have a very blunt, very serious national conversation about rethinking our entire foreign policy.
Oh, yeah.
And let me say, the president really, in my mind, ended the old order when he apologized to the Afghans while they were killing Americans.
Yeah.
For an American commander-in-chief,
Shame on him.
Yeah,
for an American commander-in-chief to apologize to people who are killing Americans, I think is beyond the pale. I cannot imagine what he was thinking.
He does it, that's the problem.
And I think this White House is so amateur and so incompetent that they didn't think through the idea, gee, what would it mean worldwide if an American president apologizes? Well, first of all, it means he is accepting that our troops are guilty.
Yes.
And guess what? The United Nations is now using his apology to argue that our troops should be disciplined.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Now,
Get out of the
I
UN.
can't imagine anything more un-American than to suggest that our troops ought to apologize to the people who've been trying to kill them. Remember how the Koran problem started. The Korans were being defaced by the radical Islamist prisoners who were using the Korans to send messages.
Yep.
And what the president should have said is, we're really sorry that these Afghans have been violating Islamic law.
Right.
And we're really sorry that they were defacing the Koran. And we really hope the mullahs are going to really attack these vicious people who have been defacing the Koran.
Yep.
Now that would have been a rational American response. But when you learned that in 2009 the U.S. Army was burning Bibles because we had a policy against any missionary work and so they were confiscating the Bibles. I didn't see any Christians rioting. I didn't see anybody getting killed. When Muslims burn churches in Nigeria, I don't see any apology. When they burn churches in Egypt, I don't see any apology. When they burn churches in Malaysia, I don't see any apology. When the Iranians last week sentenced a Christian pastor to death, I don't see any apology. When the Saudis refused to allow Christians and Jews to worship, I don't see any apology.